Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Small Biz Stories. And we have every week, right? An absolutely incredible guest. This is Sabir Semerkant, founder of Growth by Sabir. He has worked with legendary brands. I mean, I am talking driving 1 billion. Yes, that's not a blur. That's a billion dollars in revenues through his expertise in e-commerce. He's a household name with the folks like Gary V, Neil Patel. Perhaps you've heard of those guys, right? So we are just going to just jump right in and say, Sabir, welcome to the show.
Laurelyn, it's great to be here.
Well, let's get right into it. So you started off the podcast by sharing a really interesting tip about covering the brand on your microphone. So for all the folks out there who are influencers and driving things, can you share that tip? Because it was incredible.
It's not so incredible. The thing is, the camera, because of its AI, what it does is it starts focusing too much on the brand name rather than, on me, so that it starts blurring me out. So what I did was I covered it up with a lens, bag to cover it. I actually ordered a black tape to cover the name so that it's less of this, because even this is a little distracting.
Yeah. Well, see, this is all about it, right? This is what we want to get at. We always like to bring value up front to our listeners and say, okay, we've got tips. Now, Sabir has this method. It's Rapid 2X is what it's called. And we're going to be able to link it out in the listings down below so you can learn about this because he's helped brands like Ashley Stewart go from 3 million to 30 million, right? Things like this. And what's really key right now is e-commerce is hot and hotter than ever because we've got so many more modalities other than just a website, right? And a shopping cart. I mean, that's been around 25 years. So, Sabir, before we get into all of that, tell our audience what you're good at.
Uh, e-commerce. That's the only
Well,
thing
duh.
I'm good at. I'm not good at anything else. I'm very good at just I picked my lane, and this lane is e-commerce. And what's interesting about the backstory of it is that I happen to be in it because of purely an accident, right? And this has been a wonderful accident. In life you usually complain about the things that did not happen or whatever, right? And every time, every turn of my life, what I have found is the things that I thought was not good for me, like things at the moment when they suck, when it happens, right? And then when you look hindsight 10 years fast forward, right? Life happened 10 years forward, and then you look back and you go like, oh my God, thank God that thing happened. Thank God that that client fired me so I could meet the sharks. I could work with Gary. I could do this thing with Canon. I could meet, Parig, and do all these amazing things with growing these businesses and stuff like that. Always have that sort of a gratitude. I think, like as a business owner, that, as an e-commerce brand owner, you have to have that gratitude. Like things sometimes don't work out, and you have no idea what a blessing it is in disguise.
Well, see, now you just touched on, well, like about 10 million different things, but the three key ones I think that are the at the essence of entrepreneurship. One, looking for an opportunity and how you solve a problem. Two, gratitude. And three, adaptability. Would you say there are other components that were in the explanation that you provided us and what you've learned here?
So I think in on this path to where when you grow things from one, you happen to be in a world that's by accident for you, right? You learn quite a bit. The number one thing that I learned is you have to park your ego at the door, right? Because ego tends to be very, very damaging to, especially if you're a founder, right? Be open to learning about many things. That kid you just hired off of college, maybe she knows more about TikTok and what makes TikTok run and work than you do, because you don't even have TikTok installed on your phone, right? Let alone knowing every nuance of it, right? And the other opposite is true also. Like if you have a gigantic resume, like you're SVP of Johnson and Johnson Consumer Goods, and now you're gonna bless this small business with your presence, and you will accept their offer to become their CMO. You know, that CMO could make a mistake more than your revenue for the next 3 years combined at Johnson and Johnson, and it will be swept under the rug, and it will be okay, right? Your total revenue for 3 years could be a mistake that they could do at Johnson and Johnson. It will be okay, right? So resumes also, I mean, ego comes in many different shapes and sizes, you know. So you have to be very smart about like parking your ego first at the door and focusing on, almost you have to teach, learn. You have to treat your business, your e-commerce business, as a lab, right? Test, learn,
Yes.
optimize. Test, learn, optimize. Like literally, very boring. Just three things. Just keep on doing it. Just keep on. If you are very patient, and you keep on doing that, what you will do is one, you will learn what things work and where you need to spend your quality time on and your resources, right? That's one of the biggest things that most small businesses and a lot of e-commerce businesses are small businesses, right? To start with, right? And then there are very few snowflakes out there that hit a billion and stuff like that. But most of the businesses live in that $0 to $1 million. And when they join our program, you mentioned Rapid 2X. We can definitely jump into that. That's where they start growing it, right? For the first year they're part of it, it's like a 2X, right? In 12 to 18 months, like in case of Ashley Stewart, one thing you missed there was it's 3 to 30 million dollars in 2 years,
That's a key
24
point there,
months.
right? Because we don't have all day. We've got things to do, right? Places to go, people to see. On the path to entrepreneurship, you said like there's a lot of other components. I think tenacity and grit are things that entrepreneurs either have or they don't. I don't think it can be taught. What do you think about that?
As long as you're using it for the right reasons, right? Because tenacity, if you are down a certain path, you end up doing something damaging to the company because of your tenacity. Because the thing is, there's a
Mm.
very fine line between tenacity and ego, right? And it blurs. It definitely blurs. And as soon as you let it blur, you are in the wrong. You're on the wrong side of the thing. So that's why everything should be treated like a test. There are 1,000 tests. I'll give you, for example, at Ashley Stewart from 3 to 30 million, right? If you count the number of days in 2 years is working days. So let's not let's not say that we're working crazy hours, like 18 hours a day for 7 days a week. Let's not do that, right? I believe in sleeping. You should get enough sleep, right? It's good for your mental health. And also you would think more clearly, right? There are 440 working days. Now, Laura Lynn, I gave you your weekends off. I gave you a couple of weeks off per year for your vacation time. I gave you sick days. I gave you federal holidays, all of that. It's 220 per year, 220 working days per year. So for 2 years, 440 days. Every one of those days, I can tell you that it was an experiment. Every single day was an experiment, right? Every day that I showed up and I wanted to do something, my goal was to improve any one of my e-commerce KPI, any one that was meaningful. Like let's say email open rate, for example, right? And that morning, if I was driving, because I was driving from New York to New Jersey, I said, okay, you know what? Today I'm going to focus. Once I get to my office, I'm going to focus on email open rate. That's because it's been bothering me. I don't understand why it's 14%. I want it to be 15%, right? That day, I did not care about anything else, like pure, call it OCD, ADHD about e-commerce, right? Specifically, right? My head was in it to just come up with the best subject lines, test different things out, A, B, C, D test, take the same email, segment it. I wanted to try different things out. And then by the end of the day, once I sent it and I got some data, then either I felt great about what I did and I learned something from it. Either it was a grand slam because it's not a 1% improvement you get on that day. You would get 8%. But there are some days that you do something and you get zero, right? My goal was by 6 p.m. Either I'm going to rehire myself for next morning or I'm going to fire myself, right? That was my barometer, the man in the mirror, you know.
Well, that's just okay. So many things. So I train folks on PDCA, change management, process improvement, plan, do, check, act, right? Very similar to test, experiment, right? And then retry, right?
Yeah.
You have to keep it going. You talk about the privilege of focus. I'm that squirrel, right? That ADHD, like,
Pretty
one
bird.
third of all, right, exactly, right. One third of us of entrepreneurs, we fit that mindset. Now it's good because we can be adaptive, but it's also bad because we can be distracted. And I've known that when I can apply that privilege of focus to one particular problem, like you were talking about an open rate or something, wow, a couple of days later, I go like, yeah, I can take the evening off tonight, right? I mean, because that doesn't happen too often. Usually
Yeah.
it's the 24/7 grind. So I love that you're sharing with folks that that's what it takes. Just figure out one thing at a time and don't try to boil the ocean. Aim for that 1% consistent improvement in open rate. Talk to
Let
us a
me
little bit more about how do you pick which one when you're a squirrel?
let me give you the mathematics of 1% improvement. The mathematics of improvement is a 1% improvement is in 365.25 days in a year, calendar year. That means that business is going to grow. If you improve things 1%, that are going to be compounded, because these things are not tactical stuff. These are strategic things that you're picking on. Like when you improve your email rate by 1%, that's not, you're not going to give that up by December if you started on January 1st, right? It's going to compound over time. It's going to keep on giving you that benefit, right? So that mathematics gives you 36.5x growth in 1 year, right? So you go like, what I said earlier about working days, and I gave you so many days off because of, holiday, family life, work life balance, whatever you want to call it, right? So 220 working days in a year. That's 22x in a year, right? Let's say you go like, no, but Sabir, you did say that there are some days you're going to win a lot, but maybe it's not 1%, it's going to be 8%. But on other days, you're going to get zero, right? What about that? Okay, fine. Let's be less than half right, right? Because the thing is, once you start on this journey, what happens is you keep on getting better at testing. You keep on improving your testing. Your test cycles tend to get better and better. 10x. You see, I cut it down from 22x down to 10x now. I have done that time and time again. Ashley Stewart is one example of it, where it went from, by the way, at 3 million, when I took over that, it was less than 3 million. It was bankrupt, actually. and
Geez,
the
I didn't realize it was at that
and it
stage.
was it was it was actually bought out by a venture capital firm. It bought this distressed property, and then I got involved because somebody I had worked with 8 years prior and had seen me what I'm able to do, my superpower, right? Said, hey, would you be interested in coming in and doing something here interesting? And prior to that, the previous story 8 years prior was Vitamin Shop. That was vitaminshop.com was bankrupt, and I took over, and it was $8 to $10 million in 4.5 years. It went to $52 million and more profitable cash flow.
It's incredible that we've got you on our show today and everything that you're done here and the experience that you're sharing with us. I'm always so grateful when people pay it forward. They share and they say, "Yeah, I've learned this." So many people are so reluctant. It's like, "Oh no, I'm not sharing that. That's my secret. I'm not telling you my tips." I think it's nonsense because as entrepreneurs, it is a special community because it's not just the thing we do or the how we do it, it's how we feel while we're doing it because it is a freaking roller coaster nut job show, right? I mean, some days you're like, "Woo," other days you're like, right? So, talk to us about that experience that you've had too on the emotional roller coaster that is entrepreneurship.
So here's the thing. What I learned was there are certain numbers in your e-commerce business that give you that mental anguish that you're talking about, right? That roller coaster. And if you pay attention to the wrong KPIs, you end up actually damaging your self-worth also, right? You think that, oh, I suck, I'm horrible, I don't get it, I don't know why are other people winning, I'm not winning, right? You start comparing yourself to others, and that's also a disaster, not a good thing, right? For example, I'll give you one example of a e-commerce KPI that has existed since the dawn of time. That's a complete BS, right? And that's called conversion rate. I'm sure that you have heard of
Oh,
e-commerce
yes.
conversion rate. Everybody says, "Oh, what's your conversion rate?" Garbage. It's such a garbage, right? I have actually stopped using it for more than 20 years now, right? That's how long. I'm telling you that in the beginning it made sense because I was there when e-commerce was birthed, right? In the very early days of Amazon and stuff like that, right? So I've been there for a long time. In the beginning, when you didn't have the mix of media and traffic that you would drive to your site in 2025 right now, right? You didn't have that back then. You had, what did you have? You had AOL, Alta Vista, Metacrawler, Yahoo, maybe, that's it. There was no Google. I actually beta tested Google at Stanford. That's
Oh,
how long
wow.
I've been in it for a long time. It beta tested also Google AdWords back then. Now it's called Google Ads. The thing is, you have to pay attention to the right KPIs. For example, conversion rate. I'll give you an example of it, and this is a very simple example so that everybody can understand. Let's say there's a Laura Lynn. There's a hypothetical room that you walk into, right? And in this hypothetical room, there are 50 American basketball NBA players. Like the shortest guy is 6'4". It goes all the way to 6'11" and 7 feet, 7 feet 2, right? Very tall people. And the other half of the room is 50 dwarfs from the Lord of the Rings, right? I
Oh,
go like,
geez.
Laura, yeah, Laura Lynn, tell me what is the average height of the room? You go like, okay, let me take out my iPhone. I have a calculator in there. You punch in some numbers, right? And then you say equal 50 and 50. Okay, let's assume that the dwarfs are 3'7", and then the average basketball player is about 6'8". Okay, Sabir is 5'7". All right, okay, Laura Lynn, how many 5'7" people are there in the room? The answer is it's zero.
Right.
when you bring in a mix of traffic to your site, right? And then you're measuring that against some arbitrary division of two numbers, right? It doesn't really give you a meaningful direction on what do you do with that data. If I tell you, oh, the site conversion rate is 3%, okay, what do you do with that data? Instead, I have replaced that with something called session value, right? A session value means that because it's an e-commerce site, you generate a monetary number, right? Everything you do generates a monetary number, a currency, whether it's euros or USD or Japanese yen, it doesn't matter, right? You generate a certain revenue for your entire site for a given time period, right? The month of April just passed, right? So in the month of April, you got $1 million in revenue, right? Or $100,000 in revenue. Let's keep it small business. Let's call it, let's say it's $50,000. That sounds like a good number, right? $50,000 in revenue, and you had 50,000 visitors to your site or sessions to your site, right? If you divide those two numbers up, you get $1 per session, right? That means that if I were to do equally good or equally bad in generating more traffic to my site, I can bet on it that I can collect $1 per session, right? So if you add another 100 visitors to your site per day, you're adding $100 to your site per day. That's how simple that math is, right? And then that's overall. So I said equally good and equally bad because sometimes you increase, like Meta ads, you increase your spend, you're not going to get the same productivity out of it. It's fine. Some things you cannot push harder, like organic search. You cannot push harder to get more. It takes time, longer time. However, you could push pretty hard on email, and you can get more sessions out of it, right? So there, just this math we just did, you would do the same thing by channel. Every channel has a productivity, session value productivity, right? So for example, if you do the same exercise for this site, we had a $1 overall average, right? You do the math with this and you get 75 cents, let's say, from Meta ads. Then you do the same exercise with Google ads and you get something ridiculous like $2.75, right? When you do that math, now you don't have to even ask me where would you put your money if you wanted to spend more money on paid ads. You would put more money into Google ads because it's giving you the productivity. Let's say even if it diminishes and cuts in half, right, from 2.75, $2.75, even you get to $1.50, let's say, right? is still better than 75 cents you were getting out of meta ads from Facebook and Instagram ads and stuff like that. So that's a much more useful KPI to pay attention to. That's one of the things that happens in Rapid 2X. Like one, you said about when you have these pretty bird syndrome, right? Oh my God, there's a pretty bird, and you ignore the real things that you need to pay attention to, right? Well, what we do in there is also for you to be coached properly, right? Where what is a meaningful KPI and what's a complete BS, right? There are tasks that you should be paying attention to. In the Rapid 2X, you focus on 5 tasks, up to 5 tasks. Some weeks are only 3, right? 5 tasks, but very meaningful, very high value. When you put the effort in, and how long do these tasks take? 15 minutes to 90 minutes, depending on your expertise, right? When I say expertise, I don't mean the founder having the expertise themselves. Some founders are fabulous like that. They have that background, but it also means that you probably have somebody on your team that can handle that for you. Or even if there are entrepreneurs that raise their hand, e-com entrepreneurs that, hey, I don't have that guy or gal that would do that for me. No problem. We actually have at Rapid 2X approved partners who have gone through a certification process and they understand this Rapid 2X protocol for exponentially growing your e-commerce business.
All right, so I want to roll this back because I totally get it, as I'm sure our audience does, that if you look at all of the metrics and say, yeah, I spent X number of thousands of dollars on my Google ads, my Meta, Instagram, and Facebook boostings, my TikTok boostings, promos, da 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 da. And we look at the end of the month and go, oh, great. Clearly, one is a winner, right? Because it's generating higher ROI. But let's pull it back to the smaller business owner who can't afford to pay to promote across all those platforms. Where do they start and what do they do?
So it depends on the category that they're in. There are certain platforms that lend themselves really nicely, like visual platforms. Like let's say if you're into fashion, anything like that, that is heavily visual, right? Then in that case, like Meta and TikTok would be highly visual, right? Uh, but lower funnel stuff, right? Lower funnel meaning that people have a very high intent to purchase, tend to come from Google properties, right? Google.com, YouTube, stuff like that, platforms like that, right? So that depends on the category that you're in. But if you're a highly visual highly visual category like shoes, jewelry, stuff like that, and fashion, in that case, like Meta and TikTok would be the primary platforms, but the very much first platform would be Meta ads. However, I would put also Google ads because the amount of reach you have, digital reach into consumer, your typical consumer, after they're done visiting your site, they're checking their Instagram reels, they're checking they're on YouTube watching some video, right? So definitely, or checking their Gmail, right? So they will definitely hit Meta properties or Google properties, most likely, right? And then depending on the age demographic, it's possible that they are using TikTok over Instagram Reels.
I have a Google Ads expert who is meticulous about studying how they work, how they don't work, how to optimize them. And he says, and he tells all of his clients, if you're not spending 5,000 a month, forget about it. You're not going to go anywhere because the bar has shifted so much over the last couple of years with respect to ROI delivered through a Google ad. Do you agree, disagree, have thoughts, Sabir?
So I don't know about the $5,000 number. I don't, my visibility into running any business is not a month or a quarter ever. So if you ask me about monthly numbers, I have no idea, right? And even this billion, because my visibility to change is every day or every 2 days, right? And then when I tally up to see if my tests and experiments worked, I look at 1 week. That's it. That's my visibility, right? And that's where what I look at. So for Google ads and Meta ads, what are the right numbers? What is the right number for budget? What's the right number for ROAS, right? Those are two very critical questions, right? So here's the thing. When you're starting with paid ads, let's go with Google ads and Meta ads. Both of them are very similar in that aspect. When you start a campaign, that campaign needs to be shown to a certain number of people, right? And from those, that's your impressions. Your ads are being shown at a certain impression level. And then when people click on it, that's your click through rate from your ad, right? That from that click, that's a session that you're getting to your site, right? Let's go to that evil conversion rate thing, right? Let's, because most people know and understand what conversion rate is, right? That means that, if every 100 people you bring in, and most categories range from less than 1% to like 3% best case scenario for the conversion rate KPI, right? So if you bring in 100, for every 100 people you bring to your site, you're going to get, let's call it 1.5. You will get 1.5 transactions out of that, right? So if you start out, if you want to get that many clicks, in case of Google Ads, because it's CPC based, right? You will pay for those clicks. You will just pay for those clicks. Let's say if it costs you $1 per click and you bring in those 100 people, it costs you $100 to bring that in. If your site's conversion rate in that scenario is 1.5, right? That means you're going to get 1.5 orders. Let's even it out and say it's 2 orders, right? And if your average order is $50, that means that you collected a revenue of $100. You spend $100 to collect $100 in revenue, right? Your ROAS is dividing this revenue divided by the amount that you spend. $100 over $100 is ROAS of 1, right? This ROAS of 1 does not make sense for your business. It's definitely not profitable, right? And the reason I'm picking on this one is because a lot of paid media agencies and freelancers who are in this lane of Google Ads optimization or Google Ads running your campaigns or Meta Ads, they will convince you as a business owner, e-commerce business owner, that that ROAS of 1 or 1.5 is okay. It's not, right? Let's assume, like Laura Lynn, the very first cost that actually you're hit with. First, you have to give that dollar back that you spent, right? That $100 you just spent on Google Ads, you have to give that $100 back, right? Now you have nothing left. You still have to buy inventory to replenish the inventory you just sold. Not to count even the cost of shipping that you have to pay UPS, FedEx, USPS, and stuff. So ROAS of 1 never makes sense. It doesn't, right? Especially for small businesses, it doesn't make sense. The ROAS needs to be, by the way, I've done this calculation. The ROAS needs to be 2.5, and the reason behind it is because I've actually calculated this across hundreds of Shopify businesses because I have access to all of the data, right? And the one hit wonders, and you'll like this phrase, one hit wonders. And Laura Lynn, the 80s and 90s, there were a lot of one hit wonder songs, right? Mambo Number Five, Macarena, all of these kind of songs, even though they were a little bit later. But there are quite a lot of these one hit wonder songs, right? Similar to that, you have customers that sing once for you, meaning that they only give you their credit card once, right? And in case of Shopify businesses, the actual stat, it ranges from a minimum of 70% of your customer database to more than 100% of your customer database, right, is one hit wonder. So when you get that one transaction at ROAS of 1 or 1.5, that's why it doesn't make sense. You lost money on it, and somebody convinced you that it was okay to lose it because you're going to make it on a second purchase. Doesn't happen because they don't give you any kind of strategy to make that happen. So you need to have a proper strategy for retention, not just for acquisition, in order for you to get those folks to buy again from you. Your site, your business, your e-commerce site needs to have the right strategy in place to make people buy more than average order. You need to upsell them into buying a second time at the time they made that first purchase. There are things like that from a strategy standpoint that you need to actively seek in order for it to happen. You cannot just depend on paid media channels for any of that kind of stuff. So to answer it, for that Google Ads guru you mentioned, right? It starts with a funnel. You have to have a certain number, right? And in case of Google Ads, because it's CPC based, right? My recommendation is if you're starting out, you should have a minimum test budget of $50 per campaign, right? $50 is a bare minimum. So if you multiply that into 30 calendar days, it comes out to $1,500 at a minimum. But when you see that it's working, especially if you're doing performance max and you're giving it the right signals and stuff like that, Every 2 3 days you should up your budget by 20% every 2 3 days, so that you're not spending 1,500. You actually going to be exponentially growing that budget because of the ROAS of 2.5. Very profitable. Just continue doing it. Some of the rapid 2xers in our program experience anywhere from 4 to 6x ROAS while they're scaling their businesses up.
And that's incredible. So if we look at that and think about other things, and do you still have a bit more time? Can we
Sure.
keep you for a
Yeah.
few more minutes?
Yeah. Not a
Excellent, excellent.
problem.
This is
Listen,
going well.
if we can deliver great value to your audience, that's why I'm here. Let's do that.
Which is what we really appreciate. So, and I also like to be respectful of people's time, but onward we go. All right, let's keep diving in. So, with respect to the ads, so you gave us some good metrics there. Hit that 2.5 ROAS right on the ad spend. So, great. Return on ad spend is, I think, just in case anybody didn't figure out the acronym, right? So, there's that piece of it. What about TikTok Shop? Let's talk about that because that seems to be one of the hottest new e-commerce tools. I mean, since the shopping cart.
So there are multiple challenges with the TikTok platform. The thing is, there's a certain audience that's there, right? And I have seen these evolutions of ad platforms turning into ad platforms, right? Paid aspect of them, right? And TikTok is also experiencing the same problems that I saw with Google when Google went from organic to becoming sponsored ads, right? Same problem, right? There's a lot of fraudulent clicks. There is a lot of, every platform goes through it. Meta went through it also, right? And even now still have challenges with their platform, right? Google even today has those challenges with click fraud, and they try to control it. They give you refunds back and credits to your account and stuff like that. And TikTok, as we have progressed, these platforms have actually grown exponentially compared to their predecessor, right? So the amount of time it took Google to grow, in less than half the time, Facebook grew. When Snapchat came along, it grew even faster. When TikTok came, it was even smaller than that, right? And now you look at all the AI platforms, the AI platforms actually have multi-hundred million active users on a daily basis, like across all of the platforms, Claude AI, Chat GPT, all of them, right? So all these platforms do come across this challenge of, when they introduce one, they're trying to learn how to make money, right? So when you run TikTok ads, you're not going to get the same level of ROAS or better that you would get from Google ads and Meta ads because of just purely maturity. By the way, Amazon ads also does pretty fabulously, right? From that, not for direct to consumer, but for the marketplace ROAS, it does a pretty good job there, right? And they also went through the same kind of lessons learned, right, from when they were trying to monetize their traffic, right? So when it comes to TikTok, when you are running these TikTok ads, you will run into these kind of issues that you will get the clicks, but it's not going to convert into, because your ROAS is going to be pretty low. As long as you can set your expectation, you will be okay. Now the topic of TikTok shops, social commerce, right? So
Right.
from the priority of effectiveness, I would put at the very top, I will put Google Shopping, right? That's number one, right? Most of this is because of maturity of the platform. They have just existed longer, right? So Google Shopping is at the top. YouTube Shopping also is included into Google Shopping. Then it's Meta. Actually, then after that is, I would say, it would be Pinterest Shopping. Pinterest has been at the social commerce game for a long time. They have done a great job of that integration with Shopify and stuff like that. They have done a great job. They were one of the first ones to do that, and then everybody else followed. Meta ads would be next on that list, right? And then after that, I would put the TikTok shops. The challenge with TikTok shops is similar to what you face with when you try to sell your products on Amazon, right? It's priced to the bottom, very cheap, right? For some time, actually, TikTok has been in certain markets because the thing is, my visibility is not just US market, it's across the world, because I work with brands from all over the world, and the thing is with certain markets, actually TikTok is funding 40% off, 50% off. They're making the merchants whole by paying them the full retail price that they were advertising. Maybe they were putting it up on 10, 15% off. That's the selling price, but they are funding the extra discount in order to get the adoption up with TikTok shops, right? And in some markets, they even have fulfillment. So fulfilled by TikTok is an aspect of TikTok in certain markets also, right? So that you could send your products just like you do with Amazon FBA. You know, you
Mhm.
send your products to them and then they take care of the shipment and everything and they charge you for that fulfillment. Similarly, TikTok also has fulfilled by TikTok also as a program in certain markets where you can actually send them that and then they'll take care of it. And in some markets, they even foot the bill related to fulfillment just because they're trying to push this platform. It's pretty nascent in the beginning. I mean, right now, even though it might be a few $100 million right now, the thing is it's still nascent. I think it's going to grow to a few $1 billion per year, right? As a marketplace. But it's not as you have to be cautious, and you a lot of the products that are sold there are very much low priced.
Let's talk about that because I have a number of small business owners who are on here saying, no, I am not doing it. I am not going on Amazon because even as authors, and they're trying to build their platform as consultants, as coaches, and they've got their book that they've got out and their methodology that they're putting in. Amazon, I don't want to list my book there. Amazon takes whatever the number is, 82% of whatever it is that you charge for it. And like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it myself, or whatever product it is that they're selling. But there's trade-offs, right? On a
Yeah.
platform like Amazon that has gazillions of users, or TikTok, you have a chance of some greater visibility versus if you're on your own and don't really have a big mailing list yet, or are not getting a lot of hits to your website. Sure, you might have higher revenues coming in each time you sell a widget, but you're going to have to work so much harder to get those few widgets sold. Talk to us about these trade-offs.
So here's the thing. I actually wrote an article in Harvard Business Review with two fabulous professors from Harvard Business School, right? HBS. Sometimes I guest lecture there too. So we became really good colleagues, and I actually co-wrote this piece, and also Matt Higgins, who's a recurring shark, and he's the co-founder of RSE Ventures. So four of us co-authored that piece, right? About should your company sell on Amazon? And with it, within that article, you can actually find it if you go to Harvard Business Review, and plug in my name. You should be able to find my article there, right?
Yes.
And we actually produced a first of its kind Amazon seller scorecard, right? So in there, it actually gives you the criteria for evaluation, and then you evaluate yourself and you score yourself, and then based on that, it gives you parameters around how to make that decision. Does every brand belong on Amazon? The answer is no, right? Does should you be out of the Amazon game? It depends. There's a whole criteria that you need to go through to see. I'll give you the counter argument to the, well, Amazon takes so much, right? This is the same on e-commerce entrepreneur that I just said that they would give up 150% of their revenue in meta ads cost, and they'll go like, well, it's the ROAS, we'll improve it and whatever. Compared to that, Amazon is giving you a platform that has 220 million active shoppers per month, right? It's the world's busiest mall that drives traffic, that our people have extremely high, more than Google, extremely high intent to buy, right? They're giving you that platform, and they're charging you. I'll give you the numbers, right? 15% on a transaction fee to be part of the marketplace as an Amazon seller. Some categories are a little bit lesser, right? On more competitive categories, like certain categories where they know that it's less margin to play with, so that it's lesser. But on average, it's about 15%. On average, if you also let Amazon do your fulfillment, right? That there's a cost associated with it. Actually, if you do the comparison of Amazon fulfilling your order versus a 3PL, Amazon wins every day. They win in speed and they win in cost per package, right? So you cannot tell me that you are, the thing that you're packaging in your garage, giving it to UPS to take, that, and you're paying that retail, even if you got the discount that's either stamps.com or one of these, a ship station or whatever, they gave you that sort of, you did not negotiate the deal that Amazon has with UPS or FedEx, right? Because you don't have the volume to do that, right? They have the leverage, so they give you that and they pass that along to in their Amazon sellers. They give you that too through the FBA program. That on average, depending on your category you're in, right? If you have heavy and big items, obviously that my number is not going to apply there, right? On average, it costs about 18% of your revenue, right? So it costs in totality, when you list your item on Amazon and you sell it on Amazon, it costs you about 31% roughly. Compared to D2C, the same people that were arguing, but before they even optimize, they're spending 150% of their revenue on meta ads, right? So you have to, when you're thinking about that, there's a lot of, so one thing that I advise the rapid 2xers in the program is that whenever there's a lot of things that have been told to you, right, that you think that because it has been repeated so many times, you think that those are facts. Because, if you tell a lie enough times, it becomes, you think that it's
You
fact,
believe it.
yeah,
Right.
you believe it, right? You think like, oh, that's it. That's because I don't know where I heard it. I think it's right, whatever. No, don't do that. That's why whenever a rapid 2xer, usually they raise their question, they raise their hand and ask a question during our program, right? When they ask, go like, okay, where did you hear that from? Can you show me your numbers that actually says that what you're stating, right? And then they pull the number. I go like, no, that's not the case. But I know because I've heard a lot of these lies over the years, that because it's unfounded. It may have been true within a specific category like plumbing supplies, but you're in a fashion brand. You're luxury fashion. You're not plumbing supplies, right? Why are you taking this? This does not apply to you, right? So, you have to understand the context of where these things are coming from. Some of them could be purely made up and garbage. Nowadays, especially, I see that with a lot of content creators, on TikTok and YouTube and stuff like that. They are preaching a lot of things that are badly damaging to e-commerce businesses, and they should not be in that business. They're literally in the business of doing content engagement because they're content creators. They're not giving any kind of a solid advice to these businesses through their content.
That cues up AI. So we've talked about it a couple of times. So AI can help us. Now, it doesn't always present exactly the facts, right? So to your point about, oh, I've got to be mindful, what's really the intention behind it, right? If I'm a content creator, oh, you've got to use my services because if you don't, you're not going to get the same level of, whatever engagement that you were hoping for. AI is also blocking ads. AI is also being set up so in a destructive force, like you talked about the fraudulent Google clicks, that you can hire or code your own AI bot to go and just constantly keep clicking on your competitors' Google ads to rack their bill up. Right? I mean, there's so much nonsense out there, but there's so much good potential with AI. What do you advise our small business owners to do so who are getting overwhelmed by the concept of AI and how many solutions are saying, "Oh, we use AI, we use AI, use ours, use ours." What do you say to them?
So number one, the thing is Google will go out of business. Meta is going to go out of business if you think that those tools are going to, if they're actively working on coding to do click fraud, right? This is not a new AI thing. By the way, I could have written a code 20 years ago to do click fraud on Google ads, but that had nothing to do with AI, right? So now it's just another flavor of fraud. If people are doing that, they should not be doing it. It's illegal. It's illegal, right? And platforms like Google and Meta and TikTok and all these guys will, and they need to address that because it's going to lower the quality of their ad platforms and stuff like that. So they're not going to let that happen, right? There might be a short period of time that, in any crime, there's always a short period of time you can get away with it, right? And then it stops, right? And then
That's right.
so that's that part of it. Now to talk about the middle ground, right? You start on your journey of let's integrate AI into our business, right? You when you start on that journey, you go like, oh, it's pretty simple. You just go into Claude or Chat GPT. You just say, act as an e-commerce marketer and give me a couple of ideas about this thing I want to do. right? I'll give you. I love analogies, right? Like the example I gave you earlier, right? About the hypothetical room, right? Let's say you're at this party, right? And this has always happened to us, right? At different parties, you go in there. So people are, they have their mask on, right? They try to say things during that may not be true, right? So you're gonna go. You ask them about, hey, I'm running these Facebook ads. I don't know what's going on with Facebook and AI and blah blah blah. Everybody has an opinion, right? They'll
Sure.
just you have to,
There's lots of
yeah.
opinions out there, Sabir. Yes.
This is a podcast. I would have used a different wording, but I'll stick with this. A lot of opinions. Let's call it that for now, right? So unfortunately, everybody, in order to appear intelligent, they will say, "Oh yeah, you should be doing blah blah blah." They're in no business of giving that advice, first of all, right? And there is a difference between opinion and consult, right? And smart business owners, smart business e-commerce founders, they have to find out where the right consult comes from. And sometimes you have to pay for that consult, right? Because it's coming from a great place, right? Great experience and all of that, right? Versus free content, right? Free content, you have no idea what the quality of that content is. You have no idea what the goal of that content creator was. Was it to just clickbait you to start watching something, right? And it or talk about some controversial topic with not really any kind of value from what to do with it with that information, right? So when it comes to those kinds of things, you have to be very, very careful, right? That is it an opinion or is it an actual proper consult, right? So coming back to AI, when you put that prompt in for the first time, think of it meeting a stranger at a party who is pretending to be very smart. They have some concept of some things, but they have no idea what your brand is about. They have no clue what your founder story is. They have no idea why you came up with the product because they have zero context. They don't know you. So anything that they're talking about is based on their POV of the world, right? That's what AI does. AI has that POV of the world, the context that it was built. Nowadays, like in the past 3 months, I would say there is deep research mode in a lot of the AIs. Now it's going out and doing search, trying to find it. But even the search algorithm is not really documented to say that, oh, this is where it's actually getting the stuff from, right? Depends on the AI platform. I actually actively work with AI, right, in e-commerce, and actually in our Rapid 2X program, we show you exactly how to use AI to do many different things, right? Everything from creating creative briefs for image, carousel ads, other lifestyle photos to videos and stuff like that, and taking that and using platforms like GPT-4o from ChatGPT to actually create really, really solid ads that you could be testing thousands of creatives. A lot of small business owners cannot come up with one or two, let alone 1,000 tests. So AI that's how you leverage it properly, right? First, you have to build a context. Once you build enough context into AI, and Claude actually does a pretty good job of this by giving you a project where you are adding your context into saying, this is who I am, this is my brand, these are the transactions, these are the problems with my site, these are my competitors, this is the external data that I got from all of these different sources, right? These are the types of customer complaints I'm getting, blah, 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 everything, right? You're building that context. How long does it take? It's probably 15 to 20 downloads from your Shopify store and a couple of other tools, right? It doesn't take that long. You just need to put the effort in it, right? Once you put that in there, right, then from there, then you have to have the right prompts in order to generate the right things for you, because this is like the genius you have in your classroom and you're the professor, right? You know that you want to train that genius to do amazing things, but the genius doesn't know how to go about doing it, but they're genius. They're the Sheldon Cooper of Big Bang Theory, right? Really, really smart, but you really need to coach them in order to get the most out of that character, right? Very similar. AI is very similar to that, right? So once you give it enough context and you give it the right, some of our prompts are like 2, 3 pages long, right? That says that this is what we want you to do. Don't do these things, do these things. These are the reasons behind it. These are the studies behind it, blah, blah, blah. We are giving it that sort of, it does require some finessing there, right? Once you do that, and then when you put in that next request, you go like, this is the product that we would like to feature in this image ad or carousel. It actually, what it creates for you is going to be 99% there. And then you can repeat that process to have like 5 different creatives for that one product just to see, is it the social proof that's going to get you the click-through engagement to bring people to your site and then the conversion rate, right? Or is it the feature benefits? Is it the pain point? Is it the narrative? Is it the founder story? You could be testing different things like that. Like, and AI can help you with that sort of a journey. And it's not, there's no one magic AI. We actually recommend using multiple AIs in order to, some of them are great at one thing, like Claude is great at organizing large pieces of information, and also for copywriting and content generation, it does a brilliant job. Now ChatGPT with its with GPT 4.0 does an amazing job of creating image ads really, really well, and carousel ads. It does a great job. Sora, we have tried it with like B-roll type video clips to include in our video edit, but you still need that video editor, a person to take that and storytell and stitch it together really nicely, right? So there are things like that that you could do with AI really, really productively. And then once these rapid 2xers are armed with this information, now they're like flying, right? With AI, what I was able to do in 2 years with Ashley Stewart, I think that we're fast forwarding that to now. It takes about 6 weeks for an average rapid 2xer to get about 118% uplift in their revenue.
Well, so that was a ton, but it relates to one of the questions that I have just before we wrap up here. I've done multiple accelerators, all these different business programs. Watch the webinar right until you get to 58 minutes, and they're like, oh, buy here. And you're like, all right, click here, and try this stuff out, DIY, all of this, as a lot of our listeners have. What do you think's missing from these accelerators and business school programs and things? And it sounds like Rapid 2X has a lot of these bits in it. What do you think's missing, Sabir?
So here's the thing. Rapid 2X is based on optimizing 8 dimensions of e-commerce. So the game is not a single dimensional game, right? It's not just meta ads, right? It's an 8 dimensional thing. Things you do in your operations, right? Logistics, boring stuff in the warehouse, right? Has a direct impact on your meta ads performance. It is like directly proportional to it, right? We have connected those dots, right? Your customer service has a direct proportion to your social proofs, right? Your site speed has direct implications on revenue because of consumer attention span of 1.7 seconds, right?
Oh,
So it's an 8 dimensional game, right? That's what the Rapid 2X is for. The other there are a lot of programs that are out there. What has happened over my e-commerce career is that there have been a lot of specialists, right? So the person who knows, you mentioned that Google Ads expert, right? That Google Ads expert is probably Google Ads expert in this, and some of them even niche down to the category that they're in, even inside of Google Ads, like fashion industry, for example, right? That person has no clue that if they make tweaks in the logistics of the business, their Google Ads is going to improve. The
right.
thing
No,
is,
I've never heard the correlation. Yeah.
see, I have been in this game and I have touched, there's a lot of infrastructure things that I worked on from the get-go, that because there was no Shopify when I started. Google was in its beta, right? So I started in its earliest cave days, right? Caveman days, right? Of e-commerce. The thing is, I was blessed because over this 25 plus years of dealing with e-commerce and the growth in it and stuff like that, I know that these things are connected. But when you grow up in it, when you are 2 or 3 years into the game, right, into the e-commerce growth game, and you go like, oh, you know what? You go to the Shopify development store, they think that your Shopify store is the problem, right? Yes. You go to the meta ads person, your meta ads is the problem. They go like, well, it has to do with your audience and spend, because they don't do creative, right? Then the creative, you go and talk to a creative person, they go like, oh yeah, your creative is off, you're creative. They're trying to sell you whatever they're selling as the problem. to your solution, right? Nobody gives this holistic look at the business to say, guys, we're in the wrong forest, right? We need to fix the fundamentals of the
Right.
business.
Right.
This is what's wrong with it. You're trying to fix the symptom here over here, right? This is not going to fix things. This is one of the reasons, like when e-commerce businesses try to scale their ad revenue, right? It doesn't scale. This is the main reason, because something else is wrong in the business. It has nothing to do with Meta Ads. Meta Ads is a fabulous platform with Advantage Plus, incredible, right? But if you give it the wrong garbage, it's going to give you garbage of an audience right back, right? But if you give it the right signal, now if you're intelligent about it and you obsess about that detail, your ROAS is going to just start skyrocketing, right? And the correlation of these dimensions, you have to be smart about this, right? Yeah, and this is one of the reasons, like when you go lopsided into one thing, it's Shopify with meta ads, Shopify with meta ads, and you think that that's a solution, right? And you don't do anything. What happens when Apple comes along and says, "Oh, we are doing an iOS update"? Screw you guys, right? There are so many
Right.
Shopify businesses that went under, right? They went bankrupt. So many of them. Within the first year of that announcement, right? They went under, right? And but we have found ways to actually get around that too, to make sure that we close the gap on all the events that are making it from your Shopify site over to Meta, Google, TikTok, Klaviyo, all of these type of platforms.
So let's wrap up here because you've given us an incredible amount of information and bonus time and tips and no nonsense stuff, right? It wasn't like, yeah, it's just what I sell. You got to do this. It's like, no, giving us the real deets. I mean, this is what we want. Quick question. Where can people find Growth by Sabir?
Actually, we have done something very special for your audience because we wanted to give them this incredible offer. So if they go to growthbysabir.com/small biz stories, just like the podcast name, right? If they go to that, and you could include that in the video description or podcast
Of course.
description. So if you go there, they will get a special offer for your listeners. So it's an exclusive offer that we're giving them. And when they should go and apply to that. And when they go through that process, they will what happens is they actually get invited by my team. They get on a phone call with my team. They'll walk them through the details of payment plans and stuff like that. I don't get involved with that. They take care of that for me, right? And they would also invite them to join a complimentary live workshop with me, so they get to hear me walk them through these things to tell them what's right and what you should definitely not be doing in your e-commerce business.
Ooh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for giving us not only your time, but this offer as well. Last question, quick. We're going to bring it home. Quick 30 seconds. My signature question of the podcast. If we looked into your closet, there might be shoes, boots, flip-flops. There's got to be some pair of footwear in there that describes and personifies, right? Sabir Semerkant. What is that? What are we looking at? Describe it for our audience.
I'm a very simple man, right? If you've seen me on podcasts, usually this is the same shirt that I wear. I have like 15 of these, right? This Hanley shirt. My pants are always blue jeans that I wear, and the shoes that I wear is the ankle socks. My outfit, this is one decision, is already made for me every single morning, and my shoes are very, very comfortable. They're not that expensive. Skechers shoes, right? They have very nice padding, right? So that it's very comfortable for me to walk. Very simple, man, right? That's all, right? Very, very simple. This is one decision I don't have to make, whether during the day, this is the outfit I put on, or at nighttime when I have to put on my, pajamas at nighttime when I go to sleep, right? I keep things very simple unless I'm invited to it's somewhere where there is some sort of a outfit. They tell you that this is the dress code, like a wedding or a business conference or something like that. Then I do put on a suit or something like that. But in most cases, this is who I am.
Excellent. So with that, this is a wrap. Thank you so much. Growth by Sabir here on Small Biz Stories. Thank you, Sabir.
Lorelyn, it's been great, and it's been an amazing pleasure. You're an amazing host.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Okay, listeners, we've got that offer for you. Check out the details down below.